Welcome to Trailblazers, where we explore the stories of leaders who are not just growing organizations, they're reshaping communities. Today, we're thrilled to have Alex Michaels, President and CEO of Discover Lehigh Valley, a tourism leader whose leadership is fueling economic growth, elevating local pride, and redefining what it means to put the Lehigh Valley on the map. From his early years returning home after the Navy to launching innovative digital platforms and cultivating new regional partnerships, Alex's journey is a testament to resilience, vision, and the power of place. Let's dive in. Alex, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Melody.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had the pleasure of working with you, and I have to say, I'm a huge fan. I mean, I think you've done so much for the region since coming on, but take me back a little bit and share your personal journey with me from growing up in the Lehigh Valley through your time in the Navy and then eventually returning to lead tourism in the region. Okay. How did that all happen?
Gosh, okay, so this is a 2-hour segment, I assume, right?
No, 30 minutes.
Yeah, no, we'll keep it short. But and I apologize for anybody who's had to hear this story more than once. But I fortunately for me, actually, as you know, I arrived in the Valley in 1984. I always tell people the story that I kind of came here kicking and screaming because I was a teenager and very established living in New Jersey, and my parents decided that we're going to transfer with Lucid Technologies here to the Valley, and I didn't know where Allentown was except for the Billy Joel song. So I ended up here, which 1984 actually turned out to be a significant year because it was actually the year that Lehigh Valley Convention and Visitors Bureau was established, which is now Discover Lehigh Valley. And it was actually the first year of Music Fest. Oh. So I always look back, I'm like, wow, that was just kind of the start of tourism. And in my mind at that time, I was not, I didn't see the Valley as a tourism destination. It's kind of what kind of took me away from here because when, as I ended up, after I ended up here going to high school and I finally landed at East Stroudsburg University, and I actually was pursuing a career in physical therapy and exercise physiology. Most people are like, what?
Yeah.
But
a little bit of a pivot there, huh?
Yeah, but I was always intrigued with Disney. I wouldn't say necessarily that I was a Disney fan. Like I wanted to always be at Disney, but I loved what the organization stood for, and I wanted to learn more. So I had the opportunity to go to a college program, which a lot of people have gone through this college program that Disney puts on. And at the time, which was my girlfriend at the time, my wife and I were both selected for the program in the early 90s, which was great for us. We went to the college program. We ended up staying with Disney. I landed at the Polynesian Resort. She ended up in guest services. But I always say that kind of was the start of my hospitality career because I wasn't a mindset. I wasn't thinking hospitality or tourism.
Right.
And for those of you who've worked at Disney or have had an experience with Disney, you know that at that point we're the pinnacle of hospitality. They were the trainers. So it was incredible, formidable years for me learning about hospitality. Most importantly, learning customer service and kind of molding who I am today. From there, stayed with Disney for a while. My wife. Like I said, grew up here in the Valley as well. I didn't say that actually. She grew up here in the Valley. She went to Salisbury High School. I went to Whitehall. We always considered the Lehigh Valley home. Mm-hmm. So throughout my journey, going, as I tell people, I lived in about 8 different states, 11 different cities. And
you were in the Navy.
I was in the Navy too. Yeah,
right?
The Navy is kind of an interesting thing because it was a pivot.
Okay.
I had worked for Walt Disney World, in the mid '90s. We decided, start a family, and my wife started getting homesick. She was like, if we're going to start a family, I'd like to start the family and live in PA. And I'm like, well, at the time, I didn't believe PA was, or specifically Lehigh Valley was the place for tourism. I just couldn't envision it. And but fortunately for me, after some odd jobs here and there, I ended up picking up a job in a company called Kingdom Vacations out of Scranton, PA. Which was really kind of interesting because that company was a wholesale travel company that sold Disney products. But funny to me, it was a work from home, which is kind of weird in the late 90s, right? I was working from home, selling Disney products here in the Lehigh Valley for a few years. Unfortunately for me, in May of 2001, the company kind of sold pieces of it for parts and filed bankruptcy. Oh. So now I'm a young 31-year-old family, in debt like most people, even though I didn't think I was in debt. I'm trying to figure out what's my next step, and decided that it was a good move. I was going to change careers. I was kind of get back into that I was going to get back to that exercise phys world that I was into, maybe become a paramedic or EMT, and I decided to join the Navy. There was a lot more discussion in this. I convinced my wife it was a good idea.
Yeah, and you were a medical hospital corpsman at that moment.
Yeah, I was a corpsman in
Corpsman,
the dental tech corpsman. I worked in naval hospitals for my career in the Navy, but it was a really interesting time because actually, as you may or may not know, I think I've told you the story, but if not, my first day of military service was 9/11.
Oh, wow.
So the day I was swearing in, I was here in Harrisburg, PA. We swore in after the second plane had hit, the second plane had hit the towers, and
wow.
Everything changed. I was going into the Navy. I was going to pivot my career. I was going to get some money for education, potentially go into, be an EMT, maybe a paramedic, maybe get into the more medical field when I got out. But entered in, as you can imagine, everything kind of changed.
Yeah, I mean, that was a pivotal time. I
it was
we
just
can all
scary
recall.
for everyone,
Yeah.
and it was incredibly scary for my wife and for myself, trying to say, okay, what am I doing? What did I just sign up for? And as, for those that do raise their hand for the military, you're at the mercy of that commitment, and
Right.
we decided to make that commitment and made the best of it. I had a great 4.5, 5 years with the military. Did everything I possibly could. Had many awards and did a lot of great things. Unfortunately for me, I ended up establishing some pretty bad allergies while I was in the military, and ended up getting what they call reactive airway disease, which is really just asthma from allergies.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, it made me what they call non-deployable. So in 2005, I started speaking to one of the doctors that I was working for, and he said, you really should consider getting medically out of the Navy. And I'm like, well, I don't know how that works, and so on and so forth. And then what am I going to do? Now, now I'm in my mid-30s. I'm back to square one again. What am I going to do with my career? So long story short, it was a good decision. I got medically discharged from the Navy in 2005. Found myself in Ormond Beach, Florida, trying to decide what I'm going to do next in my life. And again, kind of back in that scary mode, like what's next? The only good thing about the Navy was it gave me an opportunity to kind of like do a refresh, get out of debt, kind of started fresh. It was almost like starting again, like when you start your career. And but I went back to kind of what I knew. I went back to hospitality, ended up in a hotel, which then led me to what we call CVBs, Convention and Visitors Bureaus, with my first job in Daytona Beach Convention and Visitors Bureau. And then my career kind of moved from there to visit Jacksonville, and then to Virginia's Blue Ridge, which I think you kind of alluded to, and kind of continue that what we call DMO, destination marketing career. Now it's been over 20 plus years of doing this. Fast forward a little bit, I'm skipping a lot, but fast forward to like 2016, the CEO position was coming open in Visit Jacksonville, and there were some opportunities throughout the country to move. And my daughter was about to graduate high school, and my wife and I kind of decided, okay, maybe this is the time to do this. So that's kind of how I moved into Virginia's Blue Ridge. But from there, once I landed in Virginia's Blue Ridge and I kind of started that move, I started kind of coming north, as you can imagine. The position here in 2018 came available when the CEO from Discover was retiring.
Yeah.
And I was actually on my final interview at Visit Jacksonville for that position, and for the CEO position there. And I remember calling my wife from Atlanta. I'm like, hey, I don't know if I want to go back. I've never been a person to go back. It's like, maybe we need to continue to look and see what's there. And she was kind of kidding around. I was like, well, if it doesn't work out there, you can always go back to Lehigh Valley. And I'm like, and again, I still had that perception, like, is Lehigh Valley a tourist destination? Is it the kind of position?
You're about to make it that way. Although Mike Stershik did a wonderful job.
Yeah, no, of course.
He did.
Of course.
He truly did.
No, of course. But it was in my mind, it was like, okay, I'm looking, it wasn't necessarily the best move to make for your career because it was a smaller destination. Didn't have a convention center, didn't have the big facilities, but I could see it, I could hear it in her voice, and I started to think, for so many years she's moved around for my career, she's made sacrifices, she sacrificed for me to be in the Navy, and she had to make a lot of sacrifices in her career. So I, for once I had to make a decision that was going to be best for her and for the family, and I said, let me look at this, let me be open-minded. And the other thing, too, it was always home. It was always home for me, and I kind of said, as I was working in DMOs around the country, I go, it would always be really cool to do this job in the place you call home. Like, you really feel home. I remember working at Disney. My badge said Whitehall, PA.
Yeah.
It's always been the Lehigh Valley, so when I came here, I started interviewing. My first few interviews, Cassie Hilger was on the board, and Kurt Landis, and having conversations with them, and spending some time in the Valley for the first time after many years, going to downtown Bethlehem and staying at some of the hotels. I'm like, wow, this place has changed.
Absolutely.
Has changed quite a bit.
And so how did your time at Disney and visit Jacksonville and visit Virginia's Blue Ridge inform your vision for Discover Lehigh Valley going into that leadership role?
Yeah, and it's a great question, but it's also like every job. I think, one of the things I try to tell my staff now, like, you have to kind of look at everything you do, and all these jobs really were a culmination of learning. Like, I learned the good and the bad from each job, what some of those experiences, I used to always laugh. I'm like, everybody makes such a big deal about experience, like, I can do that job. But in reality, I think with experience, you start learning, what works, what doesn't work, what have you seen. And I think the fact that I've been able to be around so many different places around the country has given me that experience to say, things that might work in Jacksonville might not work in Lehigh Valley, but there's other areas we can take. So I think it's just a culmination of all those different those learnings.
Did you have any early priorities when you assumed leadership?
Yeah, well, the first thing, when I first came on board Discover Lehigh Valley, was just trying to figure out the organization, the finances, the way the financial structure here. The Lehigh Valley is very complicated. It's we're governed by 2 counties, 3 cities, 62 municipalities. Funding is through bed tax dollars, so it was just a little complicated compared to other places. It's essentially 2 organizations under one umbrella, so you're almost running 2 different. It would be like Discover Lehigh County, Discover
Northampton
County. Yeah. And then you also have to kind of make sure that you're hitting all these other municipalities. But yeah, so it was a little bit of a challenge, just trying to figure out what direction to take it. So the first thing we did was, I came into a pretty small budget. I've never worked with anything less than a $10 million, $7 million, $10 million budget. I come to Lehigh Valley, we're at $1.8 million. So I'm like, okay, how do I?
And hitting above our weight class because, as Don Cunningham says, because we're surrounded by Philadelphia and New York, which sometimes we get the overflow from that.
100%,
but, you're also competing for those even Bucks.
Yeah.
I mean, same situation. They have a lot more funding.
Yeah, it's all of our competitors do. We're unfortunately, the Lehigh Valley hasn't caught up here in that position. And we're working on it. I mean, again, but I've always believed in dealing with the cards you're dealt. So like, what do we do? So how do I make this work? So, like most people, just like you do in your personal finances, we started dissecting, okay, what do we need to do? What don't we need to do? What are things that we can do well? What things that we can't do well? Maybe things that we're investing into are not giving the return on investment. So it was really an exercise of figuring out what we can do well and what we can, and how do we double down on the things that we can do well. And one of the things I do find with marketing organizations, sometimes it's always great to diversify, and you want to do all kinds of marketing, you want to do all kinds of partnerships, but in reality, you can only do so much with the funds that you have. So we kind of started figuring out quickly, and I think the pandemic really helped us too.
That was my next question. That was 2018. Yeah. Now you're at 2020.
Yeah, and it was a blessing in disguise.
If
it was one of the worst times in history. But in the same respect, as an organization, it really accelerated the ability to make decisions. You were in panic mode. You were in not only scared for your health and all that, but you were also in panic mode, like, how do we continue to do this? What do we do next? How do we pivot to what the next thing? But so we really dissected the organization at the time and really made a lot of decisions on where we can get that money. So immediately, we ended up, when it was all said and done, after the pandemic, we had figured out to save about $1.6 million in operating budget. Yeah, and during the pandemic, luckily for us, the Lehigh Valley became somewhat of a desirable destination for people moving around the country and for people getting away from the big cities. So we actually fared really well. Our occupancy levels in the pandemic were much better than the national average, sometimes almost 15-20% above the national average.
Wow.
Yeah, so people don't realize that the Lehigh Valley actually fared fairly well during the pandemic.
From that perspective,
From that perspective, when it came into the bed tax dollars and all that. But like I said, we learned a lot. We made a lot of cuts. Some of them were painful cuts because you don't want to get rid of anything. You don't want to necessarily put all your eggs in one basket, but we kind of started moving that way, and we started shifting, as a lot of people, into more digital advertising, more video content creation, more. We put a bigger focus on our website, and we made a lot of changes that we knew we could be good at. So, again, in marketing, you have a lot of decisions to make. You can do out of home, which is billboards. You can do print ads. You can do commercials. You can do. We started realizing the markets that we're working in are New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia, DC. Those markets are one of the more expensive markets to market in Lehigh Valley. So we knew we could be more effective digitally than we could be, me putting a billboard in Times Square, which I can't afford.
Right.
It was really a pivotal time.
It was an opportunity
it was an opportunity.
Yeah, it was a challenge that you turned into an opportunity.
Yeah, it turned into it really does. I always tell people unfortunately, we had to go through this, and I wish we didn't, but in the same respect, we're a better organization today because of having the ability to make those tough decisions that you normally wouldn't make unless you're in that panic mode. So I will never take for granted what happened in 2020, but I think Discover Lehigh Valley moving forward will always be a stronger organization because of what we had to go through. We realized that nothing is guaranteed, and that's everything in life, and we really made some changes, and I think we're financially stronger. We're set up we have the ability to pivot. We do shorter term contracts now. We work with contractors instead of just hiring employees because we realize we want to have the ability to be nimble and move. We want to be able to do things that we weren't able to do before. And it's really important. I think it's a lot of things that we have to live our personal lives like that sometimes and really be ready for those rainy days, right?
Yeah. And, you guys have, you've been pretty on the cusp of like a lot of innovative
Thank you.
Things you've been launching.
Yeah.
An AI-enabled website.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah. Over and above the digital initiatives and the digital tools and, tell me a little bit about the AI because I think a lot of people are kind of in that space.
They're scared of it.
They're toying with it. Yeah. And they, it's like, okay, how do we not use it from a perspective of just playing around with it? How do we actually use it for fulfillment of business,
Well, I always tell people like there's a lot of people like are afraid of AI and but they don't realize that AI is all around us every day.
Yeah.
Anytime you do Google anything you're doing now, it's been around for a bit,
Right.
So basically it's the website now is going to be a little bit more intuitive. One of the things, for example, let me go back to the website. We were working with one of the largest web developers for DMOs in the country. And we loved their work, but we realized we wanted to do something, again, a little bit more innovative, more cutting edge. So fortunately for us, the second largest DMO provider of websites was here in the Philadelphia area, which is a company called Tempest. So I was very fortunate to know Greg and Alex, who run that organization, and we had multiple conversations. I said to Greg and Alex, I'm like, listen, we're maybe one of the smallest clients that you're going to have, but we want to build something with you that not only you're going to be proud of, that we're going to be proud of, but we want to push the envelope. We want to make our website one of the best websites in the country. I want to compete with the New Yorks, the Philadelphias.
Boston.
Yeah. So the nice thing about it, when you look at our website now and you start playing around with it and you're working with probably the most advanced website in the DMO space. It's a very difficult space because there's so many components to it. You're trying to capture so much information, and there's also a back end to the website that the partners can actually upload information. It's more challenging than people think. But the AI component is we're going to continue to enhance this website, but in the future, as you start playing with the website, it'll start being intuitive of what you're looking for, what you're searching for. It'll help you build itineraries. It's going to work somewhat like the way you're kind of playing with Google, but it will help you kind of navigate your experience here in the Lehigh Valley. So we're trying to make it where users will come there, learn about the Lehigh Valley, learn about what it's like to visit here, potentially even live here. We're trying to work with economic development so that they can get that first date of economic development here, which is visitation. But the website is what they call non-templated. So we have the ability to do things that's not in a template format. So you'll be able to see a lot more visual, a lot more video. There's a lot more to come, but we launched it a couple of days ago,
Yes.
and I hope the listeners will have a chance to go to discoverleahvalley.com and kind of play with the website and learn. But we spend a lot of money on what they call SEO, which is search engine optimization. So we want to be that resource, not only for the residents, but specifically for those visitors, so that when they're making decisions, we provide them that information. We give them the ability to kind of go to our website and say, I want to build an itinerary. What do I do? I'm coming here for Crayola. but I want to stay. What do I do? What is there to do in the Valley? Oh, maybe we can go to Da Vinci Science Center. Maybe we can go to Dorney Park. Or, oh, there's a World Heritage designation in Bethlehem. Maybe I didn't know that was there. Because, visitors don't know county lines. They don't know city lines. So they, our job is to put that umbrella over the Lehigh Valley and kind of say, hey, you're only a few minutes away. You're coming to Crayola. Let me give you it's like we're hoping that the computer will kind of give them that hint, like, hey, build this itinerary. Here's some suggestions.
Yeah.
So it'll become a little bit more intuitive. There'll be an AI. I hate to use chat, but there'll be an AI component in there where you can talk to it.
That's
you can play with it. That's coming up soon, and then we'll have a map component too that you'll be able to kind of build things with the map. So there's a lot of things that are coming up. We just needed to get the website launched. There's a lot of content that we're also going to build it kind of like more editorial. So you're going to see a lot more blogging, a lot more content creation on the written form and on the video form. Some short-term videos. We're, as you can imagine, we're doing a ton now. I don't know if you follow us on like Instagram or TikTok, or some of those video components. So we're growing that a lot. We're trying to grow YouTube. We also know that we kind of lean most of our content to that millennial Gen Zer, which a lot of people say, well, the money's in Gen X and Boomer, but in reality, we realize that the millennial generation and the Gen Z generation is shortly coming up, and we want to build that ownership there. So we're hoping that us marketing to them now will kind of just help the Lehigh Valley in the years to come. We don't know what to expect with the alphas and the betas, but we do know that with the digital component, with the video content, it's growing. The algorithms, it's growing really fast. So the world of digital advertising changes. It's probably changing as we're speaking on this podcast right now, and it's just so quick. But we're getting better at it. We're working with some really great partners, and I hope it's a website that everyone's proud about. I hope that what they're seeing from Discover is collaboration, and we want to work to promote the Lehigh Valley first and foremost. We want to be your biggest cheerleaders. We want to invest our funds so that people will look at the Lehigh Valley as a place that they want to visit. They want to come work. They want to raise their families here. But we know that that first visitation is making that impression. They may end up coming here for college. So we're trying to work with colleges, and we have a lot of things that we're coming down the pike. But
and actually, let's talk a little bit about that collaboration, because there's a couple of things that you guys have done historically, made possible.
Sure.
There's a new campaign now coming through economic development that you guys have done. You've launched the brand ambassador program, which is super exciting.
Which adds pivot a little bit too.
And everybody can kind of get involved with that in a variety of different ways. But we have a unique opportunity coming up pretty soon with a lot of things happening in the peripheral regions that are, those regions are at capacity for those events, like the World Cup. I'll let you talk a little bit more about that. But that, the Lehigh Valley will likely benefit from that. If you're a listener within the Lehigh Valley or listening from just outside the Lehigh Valley, what are you doing in that space? Because we did a whole, it was a focus group that we kind of, pulled together, Cassie and you and Lynn from Da Vinci Science Center. And now you guys are kind of planning for that, to build those itineraries. Talk to me a little bit about that and, what you're most excited about from those collaborations.
Do you want me to tackle the question about World Cup first?
Well, there's the World Cup. There's a couple of different events that are coming up. So
as you know, America 250 is coming up in 2026, which we're kind of calling our area the Lehigh Valley 250, but it's really America 250. We're just narrowing it down what's happening with Valley. So the Lehigh Valley is coming together to kind of come up with some unique events that are going to be hopefully happening. I don't want to announce anything that's not really fully announced, but we'll have some really great events coming. I'm not sure 100%. I'm not sure that they're guaranteed yet.
You can absolutely do that on this program.
I don't want to misspeak, but just look out for 2026. I think it's going to be an incredible year here in Lehigh Valley, and we're trying to work with the three cities and all the municipalities to make sure that we're kind of painting the Lehigh Valley red, white, and blue, and really celebrating this. I want to make it a 4th of July barbecue all year long, But most importantly, we see some opportunities. The state of Pennsylvania specifically will have some tremendous opportunities to partner not only with Visit PA and the PA marketing, but having the World Cup here being hosted in Philadelphia, which I believe one of their matches will be on 4th of July here of next year. But most importantly, the proximity is what we talked about earlier. One of the greatest assets of the Lehigh Valley is we're the proximity to Philadelphia, New York. And we have 2 World Cup venues that are going to be within an hour of each. We're going to be within an hour of each. So we're ready. We actually just launched what we call a retargeting campaign to kind of tackle some of those issues, because we know Philadelphia is going to end up selling out. There's just not enough hotel rooms for.
They're at like 90% capacity.
Yeah,
now,
and there's like over
they?
20 million people that are expected to come to the
goodness.
United States for a World Cup, and a lot of them will end up in the Northeast, but with having New York and Boston and Philadelphia as the host cities. But we're trying to become. We're trying to work with ArtsQuest to be a viewing area or like another fan zone type of area, but the fan zone will be in Philadelphia. We're trying to work with some of the transportation companies to potentially provide transportation to and from Philadelphia during those games. So more to come on that. But most importantly, we're trying to position the Lehigh Valley as a location where people can kind of hub and spoke. They can go to the games, potentially have transportation to get down there, but they can also spend some time in the Lehigh Valley, take advantage of all the great, unique offerings that we have here, and go to the World Heritage Tour, spend some time at Coca-Cola Park and our zoo and our velodrome and all the different things that are happening here. People are going to be doing specific America 250 events throughout the year, but it really could position us as a really great, affordable location that's just anywhere from 60 plus miles outside of those 2 venues. So we've started our campaign. We're actually, I think it launched a couple weeks ago. We're starting what we call retargeting. Basically, when people are searching for hotels in Philadelphia, it gives them the opportunity to make some selections here in the Lehigh Valley. So we're doing some work there. We're going to be doing some marketing. Now that the games have been selected, we'll be able to target some of that marketing specifically to those international cities that are going to be coming here. But that's one of the opportunities that we're working on. But and we're doing some local things too. I'm working with the 3 cities to try to do a mural project. We want to give something back to the community for the America 250. So I'm trying to work with Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton to do a LV 250 mural project, and we're working with a local artist by the name of Kyle Edwards to kind of launch that. So more to come on that. But
wow.
I think 2026, hopefully for the Lehigh Valley, will just be another launching pad of why we're such an incredible destination. How we can work together, we can cross those county lines, we can get past all the the politics of things, and we can work together as a destination. I think that's one of the testaments of this area, that people will cross lines and we'll talk, and it's just a phenomenal place. And that's kind of like when you had talked about working with LVDC. One of my first initiatives coming here was I really wanted to have a great relationship with our Economic Development Corporation. I wanted to have a great relationship with our chambers, with our planning commissions, because again, we all are facing the same thing. We all face challenges when it comes to funding. We face challenges on all the same things that everyone does across the country, but we know that together we can work together stronger, and we can be stronger. So one of the first things we talked about with LVDC, and thanks to Don, he agreed that we should consider branding our organizations the same logo. Mm-hmm. So we worked on that. We actually were very fortunate. Liz Lopano on my team was able to design the logo and work together with the team. So we came up with a unified logo for Lehigh Valley.
That's awesome.
And we wanted to put Lehigh Valley in the forefront. Obviously, we both have our organizational names tied into the logo, Discover or Economic Corporation, or Development Corporation. But we use that for branding, we use that for marketing, we use that for billboards, for printed ads all around the country, and we both
are cohesive campaign.
Yeah, it's in theory, I catch myself sometimes. I'll be on Twitter or Facebook. I'm like, oh, is that us or is that LVDC? Well, it's really both of us, but we're basically marketing the valley. He markets more towards the development of the area, site selectors. I market more towards that visitation to that tourist, potential new resident that wants to come here. We want them to kind of explore the area. But it was a great opportunity. He worked really hard to launch the Made Possible in Lehigh Valley, which is telling the story of the Lehigh Valley, telling the story of the grit, how we continue to overcome adversity and just continue to grow. So kudos to the leaders that were here before me and for having the openness to work together. I'm a big fan of collaboration. I do believe collaboration is twofold. You both have to make that investment together. But ultimately, I do believe that for destinations like this to really excel, you have to have that unified force. And I think right now it seems like, again, maybe I'm missing it, but I really feel that people are working really cohesively together. The Lehigh Valley has just experienced a boom in population. It's not only geographically, but I think it's the leadership that's here that's been able to kind of make this a desirable place to live. Yeah, we have challenges like everywhere else. Housing, we need more housing and all that, but I think we do because we have so many people that want to live here, and that's wonderful. I think people are starting to recognize, or better yet, they're starting to discover that the Lehigh Valley is the place they want to be and they want to visit. So
well, and I think you do a beautiful job of not only collaborating but leaving a legacy behind that I think is going to sustain for many generations. And we have so much ground to cover. I could sit here and talk to you for hours, but it's only a 30-minute program. So I encourage our listeners to go to discoverlehighvalley.org, correct?
.com.
.com. Discoverlehighvalley.com. Take a look around because there's so much good stuff there. But Alex, thank you for walking us through your remarkable journey, how a teen who once resisted coming home has become the visionary, guiding Lehigh Valley into one of its most vibrant chapters yet. From bold branding and digital reinvention to nurturing ambassador communities, tourism is now not just an economic force, but a shared cultural heartbeat. If today's episode teaches us anything, it's that when leadership meets place, the results can lift entire regions. To our listeners, may Alex's passion inspire you to explore the places that you call home and celebrate them. Until next time on Trailblazers, keep forging paths worth traveling for. Thanks so much, Alex.
Well, thank you.